Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to get you smart, fast.
That's the plan.
And today, wow, we're tackling a really complex topic, South Africa. This actually came from you, the listener you pointed us to, an article by Vincent Lin.
Yeah, South Africa. Film, land, and complexities. It's quite the read.
It really is.
It apparently started, with the author meeting Debbie Els, a screenwriter.
Right, she was concerned about farm attacks, and they ended up collaborating on a screenplay. It's happening now.
Mm-hmm. And the article uses that as a springboard to talk about these wider issues.
Exactly. So our mission today is to, well, try and unpack some of that complexity around farm attacks, land reform, all of it.
Going beyond the sort of simple narratives you often hear.
Yeah, because the article itself presents quite a few different viewpoints, which is helpful.
Definitely. So where should we start? Maybe the farm attacks themselves. The article mentions that controversial framing the term white genocide.
Let's go there. Because the article, it brings in data to add context. South Africa's overall violent crime rate is, well, it's incredibly high.
Tragically high, like nearly 20,000 murders back in 2018, according to the source.
Right. And within that huge number, the number of farmers who were victims was under 100.
Which is still awful. Obviously, every death is a tragedy. But
That is different from the genocide narrative some might push.
Exactly. And, the article is pretty clear that getting reliable, verified statistics on this specific issue is really tough.
Yeah, that makes objective analysis difficult.
Mm-hmm. But I think a key takeaway the article offers is that, really, it's rural communities in general that are vulnerable.
Regardless of race.
Yes, precisely. Because of isolation, economic factors.
Yeah.
It makes people targets.
Okay. That vulnerability feels like a good bridge to the whole land reform issue.
It is. They're connected. The government's policy land expropriation without compensation, the article explains its aim is addressing those apartheid-era injustices, correcting historical wrongs.
But it's causing a lot of fear, too.
Right.
This article mentions comparisons to Zimbabwe, fears of instability.
Understandably, yeah. Change like that is bound to be unsettling.
And there are key players involved here. The article lays them out. You got the ANC, the ruling party since '94.
Trying to balance history and the economy.
And the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, much more radical, far left, pushing for immediate land redistribution.
Vehicle.
And then you have the Afrikaners, descendants of, the early Dutch and other European settlers, deeply invested in farming for generations.
Yeah, and facing uncertainty about their future, their land, it's complicated.
Which is why the historical context the article brings up is so vital.
Absolutely. You can't just look at today. It mentions Dutch and British colonialism.
The Anglo-Boer War. The first use of concentration camps, tragically.
Yeah, and the whole legacy of apartheid casting this long shadow.
It shapes everything. Land ownership itself is tangled. Right. Indigenous Khoisan claims, Bantu groups, the descendants of settlers.
Overlapping claims, contested histories. The article really warns against trying to oversimplify that past.
You just can't.
No.
Yeah.
And that leads to, I think, the article's main plea, nuance.
Yes. It acknowledges the violence against farmers is real, it's horrific.
But it insists on putting it within the bigger picture of South Africa's overall crime problem.
And crucially, using reliable sources. It points to, the official police stats, SAPS.
Africa Check, the Institute for Security Studies, places doing the hard work of fact-checking.
Away from the sensationalism.
Right, and amplifying all voices, including, importantly, Black South Africans in rural areas who are also victims of crime. It's not just one group's story.
It's a shared vulnerability. Yeah, anyways.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The article does mention hope. Civil society groups working on legal reform, trying to build unity.
And that film, it's happening now. The one Debbie Els co-wrote. The intention there, according to the article, is to spark dialogue.
To get people talking, thinking more deeply.
So pulling it all together, what the article really hammers home is just how layered these issues are. Farm attacks, land reform. They're tangled up in centuries of history.
Yeah, you really can't understand it through just, angry headlines or simple slogans. It requires, a deeper dive.
Exactly. Yeah. Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, something the article touches on at the end. In places facing deep divisions, how can things like film, like art, actually help bridge those divides and foster real understanding?
It's a powerful question. Can storytelling actually change minds or open hearts in that context?
Something to definitely mull over. Hopefully this conversation, drawing directly from the source you shared, has given you a quicker, clearer pathway into understanding this very complex situation in South Africa.